Hello, folks, and welcome to Transformed by Birth, a podcast about the rite of passage of pregnancy, birth, and new parenthood. I'm your host, Britta Bushnell, author, mythologist, childbirth educator, and all around deep diver with a side of goofball. I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is about coming to know yourself in motherhood. So grab your cup of tea. Mine today is a lemongrass ginger, or take us along for a walk as we explore the alchemical transformation that occurs for most women when they become moms. Before we begin, we start the way we always do, by lighting a candle. If you'd like to join me, please do so, or just take a breath as I light mine. I light today's candle as a blessing for all those in the vessel of transformation that is motherhood. So I love stories. Sitting on the couch with my head resting on my mom's breast, tucked under her arm, listening to her voice, bringing characters to life from the pages of a beloved book of fairy tales is the setting of some of my most cherished childhood memories. I've listened to and read stories for as long as I can remember. It was over 30 years ago that my mother-in-law gifted me the book Women Who Run with the Wolves, and the path of understanding myself through beloved stories opened in front of me. That path now informs the map of my life and work. So when today's guest, Lisa Marciano's book, Motherhood, Facing and Finding Yourself, landed in my inbox along with a request for a back cover blurb, I was instantly entranced. In it, I found the guidebook I wished I'd had 25 years ago while walking the trail of my own motherhood transformation. Since first reading it, Motherhood has become one of my go-to recommendations for new moms. Through storytelling, metaphor, and tender unpacking, Motherhood wraps you up in a supportive embrace that holds you as you blossom over and over again into your authentic version of a mother. So who is today's guest? Lisa Marciano is a certified Jungian analyst and podcaster. She's the author of 3 books with my publisher too, sounds true. Her books are Motherhood, Facing and Finding Yourself, the one I just mentioned, as well as The Vital Spark, Reclaim Your Outlaw Energies and Find Your Feminine Fire, also a beloved book, and Dreamwise, Unlocking the Meaning of Your Dreams. She's the co-host and creator of the popular depth psychology podcast, This Jungian Life, and is on the faculty of the C.G. Jung Institute of Philadelphia. I couldn't be more pleased to welcome you, Lisa, to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a joy. So I thought, if it isn't too bold of me, I want to read to you your own words and share with our audience one of the paragraphs that isn't even in the introduction. It isn't even a page number yet. It's in your preface. And I found it to be one of those that just captures so much. And I remember first reading it in the PDF version that was on my computer screen, you know, what, 5 years ago, 4.5 years
Yeah.
ago, and having it just light me up. So here it is. It says, motherhood, with its intense physical and emotional extremes, is a crucible in which we are tested and altered. In the alchemical vessel of motherhood, the heat is turned up high. Outdated parts of our personality are melted away, and new structures are forged. Motherhood is a dizzying high wire act, a masquerade, and a communion with mortality. It is a falling from and finding of grace, a falling in and out of love, and heartache by the hour. Motherhood is the ultimate confrontation with yourself. Whatever is there to discover at the bottom of your soul, whether dross or treasure, motherhood will help you find it. Oh, Lisa, Tell me about motherhood. Let's just dive
Uh-huh.
in there for me
Right.
about motherhood as teacher, as alchemical vessel, as opportunity to learn and uncover yourself. I mean, I know you wrote an
Mhm.
entire book about
Mhm.
that topic, but
Mhm.
jump in with us here.
Yeah. Well, the idea for this book came to me when my own children were very young. So I had a 2-year-old and an infant, and it was just so hard. And there was this one day that was really hard, and I was thinking, God, everything about this is just so hard. And then I thought, yeah, but I'm changing. I'm changing as a result of it. And I thought, well, that is an interesting idea. And I was in Jungian analytic training at the time. So I was thinking of it very much in terms of individuation, which is Jung's term for growing toward wholeness, I would say. And I thought, okay, so this is an individuation opportunity. And one of the things that really struck me as I looked for, who had written something about this before, because I wanted to read it, was most things that you find written about motherhood are about how to be a mother.
Right?
And
Right?
I was
How to
interested in
mother.
that.
The
How
how
to
to
mother.
mother. Yes, the act
Right.
of mothering, not the becoming.
But what
Yes.
was happening to me? I mean, this is maybe a little silly, but I am old enough to remember a really memorable advertising campaign for the Peace Corps. It must have been running in the 70s or 80s, maybe. And it was the Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love,
I
right?
remember that. You and I think, are contemporaries. So,
Yeah, but it's a great tagline. I mean, I remember the first time I heard it, I kind of got it,
yeah.
right? Because you fall in love with you don't fall in love with easy things.
Mm,
Easy things don't change you, don't test you, don't shape you, don't don't demand all of you.
yeah. Yeah. There is the crucible.
Hmm.
The vessel of transformation is that remaking of who you are. You don't get to come out the other side of motherhood intact as the person who went in.
No, you don't.
No. And sometimes that's hard. You speak about in your book in Motherhood about the grief and loss. And
Hmm.
I think that's an element that's not talked about enough.
Hmm.
In social media land, there's so much talking about the happiness of being a
Yes.
new parent. But talk
Yes.
to me about grief and loss.
Hmm.
And what is it that we're grieving? What is it that's being lost?
Well, I think, it might be very individual, but in general, we're certainly losing our youth. Like even if we have kids when we're young, we're no longer carefree once we have kids. Our bodies change, and you may be young and fit enough to sort of fit right back into your skinny jeans a few months later. But even if that's the case, your body's never quite the same. So you're losing that sense of unlimited possibility going forward. You've been nailed down in time and space to a particular fate once you become a mother. It means there are other things you certainly can't be. I mean, it's not that, hey, you have a kid and your life is over. That's not what I'm saying. But it does mean that there will be things that don't happen as a result of it.
Yeah. And there are things that even if you get back to those skinny jeans or back to at some point a career or an academic pursuit or a spiritual or creative pursuit, that there is a period when that is fallow.
Mm-hmm.
It is a field that goes fallow,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be surprising for many of
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I do think that idea of, you read that passage, you did such a great job of reading it. That phrase, confrontation with mortality, I think is there too. Because I think you don't really understand how, or I'm going to say, we don't understand fully how we're connected to the web of time until we have a child. And we can feel our connection with the past stretching back through the ancestors. And we can also imagine it going forward. Will our children have children? And it's an awe-inspiring thought, but it does make us feel small and remind us that we only have a limited time here.
Yeah. Yeah, I love you talk about Chronos and Kairos time in the book as being kind of different types of time as according to the Greeks and
hmm
how those show up in parenthood. Can you talk about those a little bit?
hmm So Chronos is sort of clock time. It's what we think of as time. And Kairos is more of a sort of, I want to say something like the time of the gods.
Mhm.
It's the right moment is one of the sense of Kairos, but it's also timeless time, let's say. Maybe that's the best description of it.
Timeless
And
time.
so when you're parenting, you're so aware if you're so aware of Kronos. Oh, you got to get your shoes on because we got to get in the car because we got to get to daycare so I can make that meeting. There's so much of managing
There's so
time and
much. You don't
you
even
it's
realize it ahead of time how much the
right.
clock is going to become your guide. Yes.
Well, when before you have kids, you're only managing your own time, right?
Right.
And if you have to get ready for that meeting, that's just you. But now all of a sudden you've got to manage these little people who don't understand time,
Right. They live in
so
a
I mean,
different type of time altogether.
well, they live in Kairos.
Yeah.
And that's why, if we're lucky enough to not be too rushed, we might share a very special moment when our child notices something, look, mommy, look at the moon.
Mhm.
And we look up and they're just in full presence. Or
Yeah.
or looking at just they'll notice all kinds of things if you're just out on a walk with them in the park. They'll be entranced by something that you just walk right by. But they're in that kind of timeless time. And we have an impulse, especially if we're in a hurry, and there are demands that we have to meet as adults to sort of shoo them along. But if we can take just a minute to drop into Kairos with them, that's a magical moment, and that's one of the beautiful things is that we do have, I think, a different relationship with time once we become a parent, and especially in early parenthood.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also that deep connection to ancestral time of the
Yes.
lineage that you were speaking to around the one of the things that I often hear with clients that I work with is especially in pregnancy, when they are starting to think about becoming a parent, and this is true for the one giving birth and their partner, both starting to replay the parenting of their own upbringing
Mm-hmm.
and running it through a new filter that is, who do I want to be
Mm-hmm.
in this role that I'm now stepping into? And how will I live up to the parenting that I have had or transcend it because I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to repeat the patterns? How
Mm-hmm.
often those deep reflective questions about the lineage they bring come in. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm on that other side now where my children are starting to have children.
Oh.
And I know it's so delicious. And being in that place of, oh, my children are going to have children. My
Yes.
my goddaughter, who's like my bonus child, already has a child, and I'm already BB, the grandma BB,
Mm-hmm.
and getting to experience that and dancing with, they will keep going. And now, who am I going to be as a grandma? And
Mm-hmm.
there's this
Mm-hmm.
lineage piece that you speak to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
that
a
it's,
link in the chain,
yeah. And
right?
if we're lucky, the chain just keeps going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it does create a lens on life that is forever altered when you are a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Forever altered. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get to go back and be like, yeah, no, I'm gonna not look at life that way. I
Right,
think it's
right.
you
You know,
see.
there's something about how, like, women's relationship with time, like one of the oldest mathematical artifacts is, I think it's a bone or a stone, it's probably a bone, and it's got 28 notches in it. And so, you know, this was probably something to do with telling time,
Yeah.
but corresponding to a woman's cycle. We feel time differently as women because our bodies have this obvious thing that they do every 28 days
Mhm.
or so. And then when we become a mother, we feel that more too. You know, when we're pregnant, we really notice the changes. You know, it's very hypothetical to our partner, you know, that we might feel sick in the beginning, and then we start feeling better in the middle term, and then we're uncomfortable, and then we can feel the baby kick, and it's all very real, and we notice that passage of time. And then when the children are born, I think that women are the ones to have a more intense sense of maybe how quickly time is going as well. Um, you know, I that was just dizzying to me
Mhm.
how quickly it went.
Yeah.
Those are, you know, and there's that wonderful phrase, you know, the minutes drag, but the years fly.
Yeah.
Because it was both like, oh my God, how am I going to make it to bedtime? And like,
Right.
oh my God, she, you know, what? She already doesn't fit into these things.
Yeah. The years are long and the days are short, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that feeling absolutely is a big piece. And when you're speaking about that cyclical nature in the body, it makes me think of the Greek twins, Artemis and Apollo,
Mm-hmm.
who I talk about in my book, but that Artemis really represents that untamed wild nature that
Yes.
is moon energy,
Yes.
changeable. And Apollo is more of that Western archetypal energy and culture that is
Mm-hmm.
clear and constant and stable. And birth and new parenthood is very Artemisian.
Yes. Yes, it
It is
is.
in the wilderness. Yeah, big time. Now, which makes me think of how you unpack so much of motherhood in your book, Motherhood, through story and symbols and archetypes. So, how do you describe an archetype? How do you like to, somebody who doesn't understand what we're
Mm-hmm.
meaning when we say archetype, how do you like to help understand what we're
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Well, it's a psychic universal. It's an elemental pattern that's part of the human. It's part of what we're gifted as a result of being human, and we we archetypes have a tendency to appear in similar forms across culture, but they themselves don't have a particular form. So Jung used this wonderful metaphor of like salt crystals dissolved in water. So when salt is in solution, it doesn't have a shape, but it's in there. When it gets crystallized out, if you allow it to evaporate, you'll find salt crystals, and salt crystals look exactly the same. They have the same structure, no matter, you know, where or when they are evaporated out. So that's a little bit like the
Mm,
archetype. The archetype kind of lives in us in solution. And then when we meet a particular situation in the outer world, the archetype gets constellated. So you could say that we're all born with an archetype for mother, and then we have our own mother that we have an experience of. And then when we become mother, that's another moment when the archetype gets constellated and becomes sort of active in our life. It has its own amount of energy and influence on us.
Mm, got it. And therein lies some of the understanding also of becoming rather than the doing of mothering, but the
Mm-hmm.
becoming. There's an identity piece that is really strong that bounces almost up against all of those crystals, salt crystals of mother for us.
Mm-hmm.
Who are we? What does this mean? Who are these various things? And you speak about archetypal mother stories as often not being a journey like in hero journeys that are out and out there and questing, but as a dropping in and down.
Mm-hmm.
And like the story that I use in my book, Transformed by Birth, and in my work is Inanna's descent to the
Yep.
underworld. So, that's an underworld, a down story.
Mm-hmm.
But you also use like the valley and well, and talk to us about what the importance is for this motherhood journey, archetypally speaking, in terms of the going down. Why
Mm-hmm.
down? Because I think there's
Mm-hmm.
some rich symbolism in the down, and I bet you
Yeah.
can unpack it beautifully.
Well, I would say, first of all, that, when this mother archetype kind of gets constellated in our life, one of the things that happens is we have access to something deep and much, much bigger than our ego. So that's the nature of finding an archetype in your life, is if it enlarges you. And I think that the descent means going into our depths, getting curious about the inner life, finding and forging a relationship with something inner. And I also mean descent in the way that I use it in the book, and that parts of it are really hard.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
there may not be a, formal diagnosable postpartum depression, but I think most women have periods of struggle in new motherhood. It's not all joy. There may be a lot of joy, but there's bound to be something that's difficult or hard or sad or scary
Mhm.
that you maybe you didn't have to deal with anything like that before. Maybe you've never quite had to deal with anything that difficult before. So it's a descent in that sense as well.
And isn't that true that even if you've experienced difficulty before, there's something that can be really unique about the difficult in parenthood because it means so much.
Yes, yes, yes.
It feels so important in a way that just blows other kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things of importance to smithereens because
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, oh, I thought that was important before.
Right.
Now my soul is existing outside of my body in the body of my child. And suddenly it remaps our brain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what about the well symbolism?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was using this story called The Two Caskets, and it's one version of this kind of popular story, but it's a mythologem that the heroine, usually a heroine, winds up falling down the well. And that's an image of descent. It's an image of descent to source as well, because what's at the bottom of a well usually water.
Mhm.
But in these stories, what the heroine finds at the bottom of the well is a strange land full of talking stoves and loaves of bread and trees that drop their apples and any number of strange things. We're not in normal waking consciousness anymore. We have been drawn into our depths, into the archetypal world, where we're experiencing that which is non-rational.
Mm.
So, and I mean, I think that this can be a very striking transition for women who may have a kind of strong Apollonian consciousness, who maybe have been in the business world or something, and then all of a sudden they're dropped into this other realm that they're not used to navigating. And it can be very, very frightening. And some number of those people will want to just get right back to work and, get the baby with a nanny as soon as possible. And I feel empathy for that.
Mhm.
But if you can tolerate it, the experience is teaching you about a different order of experience that is in you that you can have access to. And what the heroine inevitably meets down there is the wise old woman, the great mother, as it were. And that is a powerful wisdom archetype. And what the story tells us is that if you have the right attitude toward the unconscious, you can return with the boon. You can
Mm.
return with a gift.
Mm. Gathering that from that inner consciousness of wisdom with kindness and in a strange land. I think that's an important part of it too, is that you're meeting in the story, that you're meeting these characters, right, that make no sense from an upper world consciousness, and how often we meet those kinds of parts of ourselves during, especially early parenthood, I would say. We're meeting strange things that make no upper world consciousness sense to ourselves. And that I love in the story that you share of the two caskets, that the heroine is meeting this wise being as well as these various different characters, and what matters is how she is treating them,
Mm-hmm.
or aka those parts of herself,
Mm-hmm.
along the way, and that's what allows her to bring that boon back, really,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. So if you're open, if you're curious, if you have some acceptance, then it becomes a creative transformation.
Mm.
If you reject it or laugh at it or dismiss it, then that doesn't go so well. And
Right.
these stories always follow this pattern, right? One of the stories would be Mother Holle and Grimm's, or it's very similar to Diamonds and Toads, the French fairy tale. Is there's one sister who's kind and who has the right open-hearted approach to the unconscious. And she's the one who's gifted these wonderful things, usually jewels of some kind. And then her stepsister sees what she gets and she goes back and she does it all wrong. And she laughs at the thing and she's lazy and she's not interested and she doesn't care. And she winds up often getting punished terribly. But what's important to remember about these tales is that one day, depending on how we're doing, we're the open-hearted heroine. Some days, some moments, we're going to be the lazy sister.
Yeah.
That she's part of us too. But the fairy tale is a reminder that if we can meet what comes up in an open-hearted way, then it's transformational. And if you think about applying that to motherhood, there are going to be parts of it that are difficult. There are going to be times that you feel ashamed. There's going to be times that you feel enraged. There's going to be times that you feel despair. There are going to be times that you feel empty.
Yeah.
And if you can meet all of that with some curiosity and maybe some self-compassion, then then that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I
when
love
there's transformation.
I love this so much, and I think it's important because it's easy for me where I'm sitting to read or listen to fairy tales like this one where there's the two different heroines of sort,
Mm-hmm.
and not hear it as patriarchy's lessons to girls to be polite, Like, oh, the good sister who is kind and loving and pleasant gets the
Mm-hmm.
boon, and the one who is unkind, shake, shake, shake the finger, you don't get
Right.
anything. And to internalize that. But it's not, when we're looking at stories archetypally, we're doing something different. And you just
Mm-hmm.
spoke about that, of seeing all the parts in the self,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and so I think in particular, I said this before, it's not, I mean, you could read it as sort of a morality tale about being accommodating,
Right.
but
Well,
but I
and
think
there are
it's
certainly plenty of those, right? So it's not,
absolutely,
yes,
absolutely.
right.
But it's about how she relates to these figures in the inner world. So in one of the versions of this tale, this is not the one I use in the book, but it's a Creole version of the tale called The Talking Eggs. And the good sister meets this very strange old woman by the well. There's the well again. And she's kind to her. She gives her a drink of water. And so the woman brings her back to her house. She says, "You can't laugh at anything you're going to see." And there are some very strange things. There's some, kind of amalgam of animals and all kinds of other funny things. And when she gets back to the woman's house, the woman says, I need you to help me get the lice out of my hair. So she takes, and the girl says, okay. So the old woman lifts her head off her shoulders and gives it to the girl with a comb. And the girl just says, okay. And she just does what she's told, So really, we're in a strange world, but can we meet it with um, some reverence? So if you think about it, this is like you have a strange feeling, you have an intuition, you have a dream.
Mhm.
Do you laugh at it? Do you disregard it? Or do you think, that's funny? I wonder why that feeling came up then.
Yeah.
Wow, I have this intuition. Maybe I should just take a pause and listen to it. I wonder what my dream means. I think I'll write it down.
Yeah.
Then you're being like the heroine and you're open to the gift. But if you say, "Oh, that doesn't matter. I know what that means. Dreams don't mean anything anyway." You're not open to the gift.
Yeah. I've known and have been gifted with a number of people sharing with me their pregnancy dreams, their dreams while pregnant. And oh, is that rich archetypal fodder for unpacking that has blown
Yes.
my mind, from people being told in their dreams through symbolism that they're having twins, to uh, elements that let them know aspects of how their birth goes, but they don't
Wow.
necessarily know it in the process of the dream happening. But in hindsight, they look back and they go, that's what that dream told me.
Mm-hmm.
That was what that was. Wow. I had to go into the watery depths to retrieve my baby. It's like,
Mm.
wow. Yeah. And your labor was really a watery depth that required you to
Wow.
swim down to retrieve. I mean, it's just magical unpacking and exploration
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
is this other world.
Yep.
You quote Jung in your book. Um, in each of us, there is another whom we do not know,
Mm-hmm.
and I love that. And
I love that
that's,
quote.
yeah. I mean, can you add to that? Like what? Yeah, just that connects to what we're talking about, right?
It does. In each of us, there is another whom we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way we see ourselves. And then he goes on to say, and I can't quite quote it, but I'll paraphrase it. When we're stuck, it could be that mysterious other within knows how to get unstuck.
Ooh, say that again. The Say it
The
one more time.
mysterious other within, when we're stuck, the mysterious other within knows how to get us unstuck.
Hmm. That
And that's because, and he goes on to say it, and I can put my finger on the quote in just 2 seconds here. That's because when we are when we get stuck, it's because we're navigating life according to kind of the dominant values of consciousness. But the
Mm.
other within knows something different than we do. It has a different perspective, and of course, it's the unconscious. That's what the other within, or if you like, it's the self.
Hmm. Yeah. Or the
And
intuition for some people who want to speak
mm-hmm,
in less psychological terms. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
right, right. It's
Yeah.
some inner knowing. It's an
Knowing.
inner guide, but it is different than ego consciousness.
Right.
It's not the same. It's going to offer you an alternative.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Which all of this is making me think about a dream I had. So can we play
Okay,
with a dream that I
absolutely.
had? I know you do dream work.
I
And
do dreams.
for I know you do dreams. But dreams to me are in many ways very similar to, and how I've learned to work with dreams is very much how I work with fairy tales and myths.
Yes, yes,
So
sure. They're all products of the unconscious.
yeah, so looking at symbols and associating to the symbols and what does this mean and what does that mean to me, right? So that it's
Mm-hmm.
not like
Right,
necessarily going and getting unpacking it from a book that tells me what it means, but like that
right.
that inner work. And this dream that I had not that long ago is could I mean, when I shared it with my husband, he immediately went, "Oh, because it's dark."
Okay.
Right? And he had that thought of, like, took it very,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
literally.
Yep.
And for me, it was not a literal dream. It was entirely symbolic and incredibly powerful.
Mm.
So the thing to know about this before I share the dream is that my firstborn is about to be married
Oh,
and is going through a process of another layer of individuation, especially from me, because
yeah, of
he is
course.
marrying a
Oh,
woman and is living
yes.
with her and is engaged, and my position as the woman in his life is gone,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the woman in his life, right,
Yes,
is
yes,
gone.
definitely.
And I had a conversation with him on the phone one day, and then that night I had this dream.
Okay.
And so my son was really, really sick, really, really sick. And a friend of mine, I was having like a group of girlfriends who were all moms coming over to gather in circle with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
one of these moms, who's probably like my most grounded, solid, unflappable mom
Mm-hmm.
friends, one
Mm-hmm.
of those, who's also playful, but just really unflappable. She was the first to arrive. And I let her know that my son was dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just bereft and feeling horrible about this, and said to her, "I'm so sorry. I can't circle with all of you today
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
I need to go be by his side."
Mm.
And she said, "No problem. I will tell all of the other moms as they arrive what's happening, and we will make a circle for your grief."
Oh,
So this was my dream. And I was, uh, you know, just awed by it, frankly.
well, first of all, what an incredibly poignant dream. One of the things that comes up for me is that the process of being changed by motherhood never stops.
Right.
There are all these challenges and new horizons, when we're pregnant and when we have the baby and when they're young, but it keeps going. And I hope that's one of the things that comes across in the book is that
It does. Yeah.
it's the book deals with the new motherhood, and it also deals with how does it feel to become a grandmother or when your kids go off to college. So here is another crossroads. And of course, I'm sure you're thinking of it the same way I am. That your son wasn't literally dying. That's not what the dream about. But your son,
Yes.
as your baby,
Hmm.
is dying.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about the dream is, your friend says, we will make a circle for your grief. In a way, the dream made a circle for your grief. Because I
Yeah.
think that when an adult child goes off into their own life, especially in a lovely way,
Hmm.
we do feel tremendous grief, but we don't really feel like we can feel it.
Right.
Because, of course, part of us is thrilled, but
Of
everyone
course.
kind of expects us to be
I love
thrilled.
all of these people I
Yeah.
love who my son is becoming. I love the woman he's marrying. I
Ah,
love the life they're creating. And there is something dying for me,
yes.
and there is grief.
And they're going off into a life that will at some point not include you.
Yeah.
Because, it's that wonderful Khalil Gibran book.
Mm.
This is they're of the future.
Right.
We're that
We are
we're
the
not.
bows. We are the
Yes.
bows from which
Yes.
their arrows are cast, but their
Yes.
arrows go out into the world.
That's right.
And there is an element of grief all along the way, right? I think you
All
talk
along the way.
about in the book at some point, I don't remember exactly where, but it's like that element of loss, that element of letting go, I think
Hmm.
is how you speak about it, happens throughout the
Yep.
journey of motherhood.
Yep.
It's a constant in motherhood is the
Hmm.
letting go. And this dream for me was about that. More
So the
letting
dream
go.
gave you a space, an interior space to feel this grief. And with having your friends all there, the dream gave you permission to feel the grief.
It did. I woke up
Mm.
actually feeling, I'd gone to
Mm.
bed that night feeling angsty and
Yeah,
icky from the phone call that we had had that was a fine phone call, but it had
right.
touched something in my interior
Yeah,
that nobody else was aware of.
right.
But I felt it. And then my unconscious in the night went to work.
Hmm.
And I was able to wake up with an
With
understanding
with
and a
some with
circle.
some kind of clarity, right?
Mhm.
With
A
some kind
circle
of
for my
clarity.
grief, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that, I got married on the later side. I think I was 34 when I got married, and my mom just really she really had a hard time at my wedding, actually. She cried a lot. She was very upset, and I remember talking to her about it later. I was like, I'm a little perplexed. I mean, I left home when I was 18. I never lived at home again. I, lived overseas, and I did this and I did that. Like, why is this the thing? I didn't understand it. I'm 34 years old. I just got married. I don't have kids. I don't get it. And she said, well, until now, whenever anything went wrong, I would always be the first person that you called. And that's not true anymore. And I
Oh,
went, oh my God. Like I got it, I got it.
yeah, that is part of that big threshold. It that
Mhm.
that echoes for me something I write about in my book about how the we think about the transition to becoming a mother or a parent, that we go through that change. But another change that is happening is going from like a couple to a family.
Yeah.
And even the identity of what we mean by the word family changes. Like prior to having
Yes.
kids, if I said to somebody, I'm spending the weekend with my family, I meant my family of origin, the
That's
family
right.
that raised me.
That's
But
right. Yeah.
after I had kids, if I said I'm spending the weekend with my family, I meant my husband and my kids.
Well, and it's like the giant clock of the generations
Yeah.
just moves a notch. and
Yeah.
then we're sort of somewhere else on it that we weren't before. It's
Yeah.
very momentous.
Yeah, I call it the turning of the family wheel, and that
Yeah.
when we are in the seat of the child, we have our parent and our maybe our grandparents if they're still around, but when we move our butt into that apex seat of the
Yes.
parent and our child comes in to the seat of the child, our parent's booty gets booted out of that parent seat into the seat of the grandparent. And that's a whole other kind
It
of,
is. It
I
is.
mean, I just got my butt booted out of the parent
Yeah.
seat with my goddaughter, and I'm having to be like, "Oh, she gets to decide.
Yes. Yeah,
He
that's a
gets to
big transition.
decide." Yeah.
And by the way, when the other thing that happens at that moment of transition, is we stop being the child.
Right.
Which, I mean,
Which
I can remember, like that first Christmas when, either I was pregnant or I was, I guess I don't remember it that well. Either I was pregnant or or my baby had just been born. And it was like my parents come to visit and they're like, they don't care about me. They walk right past me. Where's the baby? I'm like,
right.
wait a minute. What about me? It's
Right.
like, do I get all is, where's my Christmas present? I mean, a little bit, it's like people don't care so much anymore about me. I'm not
Which
the beloved
yeah,
child.
totally, which kind of echoes back to what you were saying earlier about that process of individuation.
Hmm.
That there is another thing that happens, that process of maturation when we become a parent. It catapults us into a new part of maturation, a new part
Hmm.
of individuation that is not touched prior to that in the same kind of way
That's right. That's right. Because
because
now
we
we really
aren't the
are in
child.
service
Yeah.
to something else, right?
And we are no
That's,
longer identifying as the child. And
yeah.
that identity as the child is permissive in this overculture. And it
Yes, it
allows
is.
us a lot of things.
Yes.
And when we become the parent, there's a you're now responsible for somebody else, and somebody else is in that chair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in that.
And you're focusing on the next generation.
Right. Yeah. Which is, oof, yeah, a whole different way of seeing the world
Hmm.
is when we're focused on that
Hmm.
next generation. Yeah.
And certainly people can be really, steadfast, committed stewards of the next generation without being parents.
I agree.
But it's
Absolutely.
almost impossible to be a parent and not be have that sense of responsibility for the next generation on your shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things that you talk about that also in some ways feels like it came up in my dream is shadow work.
Hmm.
So, can you talk about the role of what is the shadow? What is shadow work, and how does it show up in motherhood or
Oh
parenthood?
gosh.
I know it's a book in its own right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so shadow is a term coined by Jung to refer to the parts of the personality that were left undeveloped. He at one point speaks of them as kind of glowing coals, like left on the lumber room floor. That it's something that maybe you had a penchant for, or a passion for, or a talent for in childhood, that wasn't valued perhaps by your parents or the culture or you, and so you just set it aside. Maybe it's also some potential in you that was disallowed. For example, the potential to, I don't know, be greedy.
Mhm.
And you were taught not to be greedy, and that's a good thing to be taught, by the way. So you took all your greediness and you pushed it aside. You didn't get rid of it. It went into the shadow where you have less of a relationship with it. It's like there are all these parts of you and you've shoved them off into this room somewhere, and they sort of bang on the door sometimes. You hear them. You kind of know they're in there, but you don't really want to think about it. So you sort of don't have much of a conscious relationship with those parts of your personality. Jung once said, the shadow is everything you don't wish to be.
Mhm.
So then your kid comes along, and there's a couple things that can happen. First of all, your kid is doing really cringy, awful things that you do too that you don't want to know that you do. So
Right.
maybe your kid's being really greedy, and you're like, oh my God, it's like it challenges you because you're confronted with your own shadow qualities when your children act them out, and inevitably they do. And I think the other way that shadow comes up is, you know, uh, I think, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong about this, but I think that when we parent, we will know the very best of ourselves, but we'll also know the very worst. One of my favorite
100%.
motherhood
100%.
quotes, which is in
Yes.
the book, is the novelist Faye Weldon, so brilliant. She said, "The best part about not having kids is you can go on believing that you're a good person." And so you're going to meet like your witchiest self. You're going to
Yeah.
like, you're going to have homicidal thoughts about your own beloved child at some point. Maybe I'm
Maybe that's a
exaggerating
bit
a little
extreme on
bit,
that one. Yes,
but
but you're gonna meet the ogre of
yes,
your inner psyche in the
yes,
process. And
absolutely.
I mean, I remember, I mean, I can think immediately to a time
Yep.
when I met that part of myself,
Hmm.
and how, and even now to this day, I can bristle a little bit, as I reflect on that like moment, and like, ooh, I yelled at my kid with a ferocity that
Yeah,
is hard
yeah.
for me to, like, I didn't even know where it came from.
Exactly, exactly. So there's a shadow. You didn't know that you could be that you didn't know you had an inner ogre. You actually may not have known you had that ogre. If
Right.
before having kids, someone would have said, "Do you have an ogre?" You would have been like, "No." But then there you are being an ogre, you know?
Yeah.
So it is a real confrontation with shadow. But the thing about meeting shadow, and I think there's maybe some misunderstanding about the nature of shadow work because it's become very kind of popular on social media. The point is not to banish those parts. That doesn't work. The
Right.
point is to integrate them to the extent that we can, or at least have a relationship with them. Sit down at the table with them. So, and what I mean by integrate, it might mean something like, okay, I'm just going to use greed for example because I've already used that one. It's like, all right, so I have a greedy side. Well, you know what? Sometimes it works to be greedy. There are situations in which being greedy might be just the right thing. Now, it takes some discernment to figure out when that is. But there are times when being greedy might be in service to the higher thing. And being very demure and not asking for much is actually not in service of the higher thing. So it's good to know how to be greedy. It's good to have a relationship with your greed because there's a moment when it might come in handy.
Yeah. I love that. And it's it it, I'm hearing it through story motifs as well, and thinking about it in, a story that I'm deeply connected with and have worked with personally and professionally for 20 years is Inanna's Descent. And I'm thinking of, Inanna being the upper world goddess and her sister Rishkagal in the underworld, hidden eating clay, like
Yeah.
the parts of ourselves that we banish to the underworld and only feed them clay,
Wow. Yeah.
right? And part of Inanna's journey is to go and meet that part of herself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is a lot of what this journey of toward wholeness, toward reckoning with ourselves, I think is about is journeying to see those parts of ourselves we've banished. And
Yes, and specifically around anger, because I think that is an issue for mothers of young children. And most mothers of young children struggle with yelling at their kids, let's say. And I'm not here to say that you should yell at your kids, but there is a blessing in anger.
mm,
There
say
is
more.
there is well, I think that it's I mean, for one thing, anger is very authentic. It's very embodied. And
Yeah.
when we're feeling it, we know exactly where we are. Or at least we're really fully in our body at that moment. And and also it's also authentic interpersonally. You know, it might be important for the kid to realize that they just pissed you off. That might
Mhm.
be important feedback. I mean, perhaps not for a young child,
Mhm.
but certainly for an older child, it's like you just did something really obnoxious. It pissed me off. That's
Yeah.
just real.
Well, and
And I think,
the truth is children express anger. They
of
feel
course,
anger, and we
of
get to have an
course.
opportunity in a parental role to meet their anger in a way
Yeah.
that is respectful, understanding, and boundaried. But
Yes.
when we can do that with our own, it teaches our children even more
Right.
because they learn not just from us talking about it, but from
Right.
how we do it.
Right. And, if you sometimes lose your cool and do something that you wish you hadn't done, like yell, the repair is very important, and it teaches kids, hey, I can make a mistake and then there can be a repair.
Yeah. And that repair, that's a huge thing to learn because it also helps the child create an inner dialogue where they allow themselves to repair when they
Yes.
do something that they don't
Yes.
like with themselves, right?
Yes, that's a great point.
We're modeling inner
Mhm.
conversation, not just outer conversation.
Yeah, I really like that. That's a great point. Yeah.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
You and I know, could talk and talk and talk because the language of archetypes and stories is something that we both love. Um,
Mhm.
and I know that our time is also short and coming to a close. So I want to ask you, where can people connect with you, with your work? You have a few different offerings. Like what have you got out there for folks who are like, "Ooh, shadow work, story
Mhm.
work, help me. I want some of this." Please share.
Well, there's definitely my podcast, which I do with my two colleagues. It's called This Jungian Life, and you can find us wherever you get podcasts and also at thisunionlife.com. And if you go to our website, there's a lot of good stuff there, including our 12-month online dream course called Dream School. My author website, where I also have some goodies, is lisamarciano.com. And one of the things that you might learn about if you go to my website is I have an online fairy tale group for women called Spinning Straw, and we talk about a different story every month.
Yeah.
And
And
so I
I
think
am a
I
part of
think
it.
that
I
covers
love
the
it.
waterfront.
Yep.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah. It's wonderful to see all of that. Are you active on any social media places?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Lisa Marciano. I'm on Twitter, although not, no, I guess it's called X. I'm not very active there, but for what it's worth, at Lisa Marciano. So those are the two
Oh,
main ones.
wonderful. Thank you. So, as we begin to bring this conversation to a close, I like to end with the same question every time. So, what's one thing that you feel passionately about that you would want new or expectant parents to see, hear, feel, or know during this profound period, this rite of passage in their lives?
hmm Well, what I would say, I do know exactly what I want to say to that because I have a lot of people come in a lot of my analysands are parents, and they may worry that they're doing it wrong. And one of the things I'll always say is, do you enjoy it at least some of the time? And if they say yes, I say, then you're doing it right.
Mm.
Because working with people, I've been an analyst now for a number of years, and I've been a therapist for longer than that. And I can tell you that people come in and you can tell that they were loved, but that's different than having been enjoyed.
Mm.
You know, our parents love us when they make sure there's food on the table, and they, they work two jobs maybe to do that. But being enjoyed is something different altogether. It's the way that someone lights up when we come in the room. It's the way that we make someone laugh. It's delight. It's fun. And hopefully parenting is fun at least some of the time. It's not going to be fun all of the time.
No.
But if you enjoy your child, that is everything they need and more. And you can tell adults that come in who've been enjoyed versus those that haven't. So know that you're doing it right and enjoy it.
Mm. I love that. Thank you so much, Lisa, for being a part of this and joining me in this conversation and for your work. I love these books. I mean, you should see all the tabs I've got in my book of motherhood, and Vital Spark is also a beloved volume of mine. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And thank you, listeners, for sharing this time with us. If something shared today impacted, supported, or moved you, please share this episode with a friend. I produce this podcast myself, and your support makes it possible. To show a little love for the podcast and these conversations, please follow, rate, and review. If you'd like to continue the conversation, please join us on Instagram at Transformed by Birth. I look forward to being with you again on the next episode of Transformed by Birth. Now let's take a breath. We're going to blow out our candle, but before we do, let's draw inside with the inhale everything we want to take away from this conversation, this time we've shared together. And on an exhale, we blow out the candle. Until next time, bye, friends.